Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet. This review is brought to you in part by Rogers Hobby Center in Saginaw, Michigan, where the fun begins. This review covers the Ryder short hauler Ford Louisville line truck. It's a 125 scale kit from AMT number T515. And June 11th marks the 19th anniversary of justice served to Timothy McVeigh, who on the bright yellow trucks made them infamous during the 1994 Oklahoma City bombing. Now the Ryder version of the truck, the short hauler here, debuted in 1971, and at least half a dozen times since then in different versions, including a 2017 reboxing in Coca-Cola markings. Now this kit's out of production, but can still be found online at auctions and garage sales. It has about 220 pieces, and it's a skill level for the experienced builder. It's molded in white, clear red, clear orange, chrome with black vinyl tires and water slide decals. And when you're done, the dimensions are about 14.5 inches long, 4 inches wide, and 5.5 inches high. I say, that's our program director, Newt. Come on in here, Newt. You got a question for us?
That's a nice looking truck, but all the Ryder trucks I've ever seen are white. Why is this one yellow?
Well, that's an interesting question there, Newt, and I guess it's, well, hey, how old are you anyway? Yeah, okay, that explains it. Well, anyway, in about 94, Ryder sold off its consumer truck rental business, and one of the stipulations was that they had to change the color. They had to remove the yellow bodies and paint them white. So the new company that took over wanted white bodies. And before that, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing one of them bright yellow Ryder trucks going down the road somewhere. Here are the contents of the kit. There's quite a few pieces, so you'll get your money's worth. Now we'll be using liquid cement, tube glue, and CA glue for that matter, for fragile parts, and also some of the clear glue for the clear glass pieces. But remember to follow the manufacturer's safety and use guidelines for any of the products you see here or that we use in the review. Here are the decals for the kit. The colors are right on and the register is good, but I strongly suggest that you use some setting solutions because of the body contours and things, as well as the long stripes. They'll need plenty of warm water and some setting solution to settle onto the body. Construction starts with the engine, and we'll be putting the pieces together that you see here, and starting with the block halves. And this was painted a blue, a Tester's Gloss blue, to replicate the box art there. And the basic engine goes together very easily. There's no real issues with the parts fit, etc. The cylinder heads were painted blue too, of course. And the rocker arms are attached, and the left and right manifolds were attached. Now we're going to paint the intake manifold aluminum, and it gets attached in between the cylinder heads. Now the PCV valve there, it gets a semi-gloss black treatment. And there's a little bit of flash on the exhaust manifold, so you'll have to trim those off. Most of the accessory parts here are given a semi-gloss black paint, but the starter is given a gloss black paint. And you can see here the configuration of the dual oil filters on the cooler. They're also painted blue, just like the engine. The wheel assemblies are next, and we're going to attach the wheel flange to the front wheel. And it's a Goodyear branded tire from the old days, and that gets snapped onto the front wheel assembly, and you repeat this for the other front wheel. Now the other wheels are assembled just as the instructions show, and there's no real issues with fit. You will need to trim up some flash and sprue mounting points there. There are two options for the hubs in this kit. There's stock hubs, and then there's the baby moon hubs. So the stock hubs get painted gloss yellow, and then the stock hub is attached for my kit here to the front of the rear brake drum. through both rear wheel assemblies, and you repeat this process to assemble the second rear tire assembly as well. Now we can start the frame assembly, and as you can see, the construction technique there. Here's the pieces, and it's going to be important to glue these together with some good strong glue. And when you do that, make sure that you set this frame up so that it can continue to dry straight and flat. So put a little weight on it to make sure that it stays like that, to make sure you get a good base for your model. Once the frame has dried fully, go ahead and give it a coat of gloss black paint. Grab the pieces for the rear axle assembly. You can see the instructions set here, and everything fits together very well. You'll just have to clean up some minor flash and sprue mounting points, but always test fit those pieces to make sure they fit together properly. And once again, we'll be using some good strong glue so that these parts stay together, and make sure that everything is symmetrical as it dries. When you're done, the metal axle is slid through the rear assembly there, and then the rear tire assemblies can be installed onto that. And I just kind of tap those carefully on one side of the tire, and then press them together. You don't want to damage the tires, but you need to press them together until they come to complete stop there, coming together. So the rear axle components were painted gloss black too, but the shackles I painted yellow, Ryder yellow, and the springs are red. You can see in the instructions the order of assembly for the front axle, and it goes together much like the rear, with of course different components, and it'll get the same basic color scheme. So go ahead and assemble the pieces you see here. Use some good strong glue, but make sure you have enough time so that you can set that whole frame down on its tires when it's in place, and make sure that it's nice and flat and symmetrical between the four wheels. And so now you can add the front wheel assemblies to the axles up front there, just like the rears, and then make sure that as it sets, everything is setting squarely on all four wheels. Now we'll continue up front here with some of the radiator pieces, the drive shaft, and some hoses. And we're going to paint the hoses flat black, and then the radiator, the shroud, and the drive shaft, they're gloss black. Now the engine assembly, make sure you scrape off any paint and use a test fit to find out where that sits on the mounting points, and then you're going to add the engine to the frame with some good strong glue, and then we're going to assemble the drive shaft into that between the engine assembly and the midship bearing. And then the fan shroud is attached in there to the front, and the radiator assembly is installed onto the frame. Now the lower radiator hose and the uppers are installed to the radiator and the engine. And now we can add the cab mounts, the battery box, and the lubrifinder. Now the lubrifinder is chrome plated. You need to remove any chrome plating where you're going to glue the parts together. So go ahead and glue those halves together and install the parts that you see here as shown in the photo. And then of course those are painted gloss black. Now you could paint the battery box yellow. It comes in either color from what I've seen. We'll get these pieces out of the kit, and we'll paint the fuel tank mounts gloss black, and then the tank halves are assembled. And a word about that, this is the way they made plastic injected parts. So your choices are to either accept the way they are, or get them together, strip all the chrome plating off, smooth them out, and then repaint or replate them at a chrome plating service or with some of the all-clad chrome type paints. Now you can locate these pieces, and the steering wheel and the column, they're painted semi-gloss black, and the IP and the gauge panel there, they are dashboard, they're semi-gloss black, and then the insets are detailed with some medium brown. Now the gauge panel and the column get attached to the panel, and then the steering wheel gets attached to the column. Now the shaft can be installed later on. We'll work on the interior, and the inside, of course, where the seating area is, that's painted a semi-gloss black, and then the bottom and the outside is painted flat black. Now the base halves are assembled, attached to the driver's seat, and then that seat assembly They're painted semi-gloss black and installed into the interior. Then the dashboard's installed into the interior on its mounts, and the steering shaft can be attached to the bottom of the steering column. Now we'll use these pieces and we'll paint the interior of the firewall and the trans-quadrant housing there semi-gloss black. And then the housing is attached to the firewall, and the shift lever is glued to the trans-quadrant housing. Now locate your glue points and attach the interior assembly to the firewall, the front side there, and then the steering shaft goes through a hole in the firewall. Pull these two air tanks out of the kit, and they are painted gloss black and attached to the bottom of the interior assembly. Now test fit and locate your glue points, and then attach the interior assembly to the frame. The other end of the steering shaft is attached to the power steering box. Begin work on the cab, and then we're going to paint the cab after we've cleaned it up. Look for any parting lines or any flash, and then sand it all smooth. And when you've got a good nice look to it after some primer, go ahead and paint that your color. In this case, of course, Ryder gloss yellow, and then it gets detailed with a little silver, of course. The windshield and the windows, they're installed with some clear part cement, and then the holes on the cab roof get opened up with a pin vise or the tip of a hobby knife, and we'll use that later. The radio gets painted semi-gloss black and installed into the cab. We'll be working with these pieces next, and we're going to paint the air conditioner box gloss yellow like the cab, and then the grill there also is attached to that, and then glued to the top of the cab. Now the roof light lenses get painted, their appropriate color. You can see them there. Now we'll grab these pieces. Those are the braces for the mirrors, and we're going to make sure, along with the grab handle, that you scrape the paint off from or the plating off from where you want to glue the pieces in, and use some glue sparingly. Attach those to the cab. Work with these pieces, and we're going to paint the left and right exhaust pipe and muffler. We're going to paint the muffler steel, and then install that into the frame assembly and attach to the engine assembly. Now the exhaust tips in figure here don't really match the description in step 1 or the box art, so I did a little research, and we'll come back to these. Now the air cleaner bracket halves you see here, and the air hose halves, they're assembled and painted semi-gloss black, and the air cleaner bracket assembly gets attached to the firewall, and then the hose is attached between the air cleaner bracket assembly and the air intake manifold. Up the hood and the grill, these pieces that you see here in the headlights, we're going to paint the hood and the air cleaner cover Ryder yellow, and then the air cleaner cover and grill get attached to the hood, and the headlight lenses are attached to the headlights with some clear cement, and then installed into the hood. And there's holes for the fender turn indicator lights on the hood. Just open those up carefully, and like I said, with a pin vise or a sharp hobby knife. And then the turn indicator lights are detailed with some turn signal amber and attached to the hood assembly. The front bumper then, once you scrape the glue points off, will be attached to the frame, and then the license plates painted silver and attached to that front bumper. Now the hood can be placed on the frame assembly without glue. There's no hinges or anything else, so you just put it into place. Of course, as you can see, when I first put it into position here, there's quite a gap there, so I had to do a little bit of rework to eliminate most of that gap. Now I'll start working on the van body, and one of the things that's important is that you use some slow setting glue to make sure that everything is square and fits tight, along with some band-aids or tape to make sure that the gaps aren't appearing in the seams. Prior to assembly, we need to do some painting on the van part. So the side panels are painted yellow on the outside, flat white on the inside, along with some aluminum, and also, as you see here, some medium brown. Now the side door gets painted yellow, and then testers flat white on the inside, and the side door hinges are painted flat white. The roll-up door guide is aluminum, and the side door can be installed into the left side panel without glue, and then the side door hinge retainer can be attached to the side door, which locks that side door onto the left side. And the roll-up door guide then is attached to the left side now. Now we're going to finish the right side door panel in the same manner. Get these out, and the floor gets painted, medium brown on top and flat black on the bottom. And the front panel gets sprayed yellows on the outside and flat white on the inside, along with a little bit of aluminum and some medium brown. The left side panel, the right side, and the front then are attached to the floor. Go slow, and then make sure all your parts and seams are fitting correctly. And now the rear door frame there gets painted yellow, and the roll-up door gets cut into sections so that it would be an actual working, and those sections get smoothed down and painted gloss yellow on the outside, flat white on the inside, and then the door frame gets installed onto the floor assembly, and then the roll-up pieces then are installed into both roll-up door guides, and you use a piece of tape applied to the back of the door pieces to hold them together. Now we'll work with the roof, and fortunately, even for its age, most of these parts are very flat and fit together pretty well. But we're going to, of course, paint the outside yellow and the inside flat white, and then it gets glued into the onto the top of the box. Go slow and make sure it all fits and stays together. The dock bumpers are painted yellow, and they're attached to the box assembly in the back, and the rear step is attached to the rear door frame. The left and right dock bumpers there, and then we're going to use the assist handles and attach those to the rear door frame as well. At the back end, the taillight lenses get installed into the bezels, and then they're attached with some clear part cement there, and then that's glued to the box assembly. And then all of the reflectors and amber lights and the red lights are attached to the back end, as you see here in the photo. And then there's a little concern here about the taillights. They either won't be seen or they would hamper the operation of the power lift from what I can see, but that seems to be correct according to the instructions. And now we're going to add these frame members, the right and left mounting plates, and they're painted gloss black and attached to the frame assembly. And then the left is attached, mounting plate is attached to the left, and the right on the right. Now, don't add one of the mounting plates until the trunnion pipe assembly that we see in figure 75 is ready to be installed. Otherwise, it's really hard to get that into position. So it gets a little bit tricky here, but bear with me. The trunnion pipe halves are assembled, and then the trunnion pipe assembly, the right and left lift arm, and the brace rod then are painted yellow. And then the trunnion pipe assembly gets installed to the right and left mounting plates. Then the right lift arm and left lift arms are attached to the trunnion pipe assemblies. Now the end caps then are attached to each of the lift arms, and the brace rod is installed between the left and right lift arms. Now the hydraulic cylinders can be attached between the lift arms and the brace rod, and the power unit base gets attached to the trunnion assembly. Now the lift power halves are assembled and attached to the unit's base. And then the platform and the end and the retainers are painted gloss yellow, and the platform end is installed onto the platform without glue. Now those end retainers for the platform are attached to it, locking the platform end into place. And then the platform assembly itself is installed into the lift assembly. Test fit to locate your gluing points, and then we're going to attach the van body to the frame. Make sure you scrape the paint to get a good bond, and use some good strong glue like epoxy or even CA glue, and attach the box assembly into place on the frame. Now we'll take the mud flaps, paint those flat black, and attach them to the box behind the rear tires. I did a little judicious sanding of the contact points, and then touched up those areas with the yellow paint, so that I was able to reduce that gap up there on the hood to cab assembly. I couldn't find any good examples or photos of this, but I couldn't understand why the pictures didn't seem to match the instructions, or the parts actually. They seem to exit much earlier than the photos, but that's the way they are designed, and that's the way I placed them. Now I move those tail lights up to the top edge of the rear step there, or the bottom edge of it, and then the lift operation was tested to make sure that the tail lights would not interfere with their new location. There were just a couple of pieces left over, construction pieces, and they are for a different version with an extra axle for this kit. Well, there you have it. Now, aside from the tail light location, the hood fit, and the exhaust looking a little different, this turns out to be a really nice example to return the Ryder truck to its 1971 glory in the official Ryder yellow that they used to be. And there's no real major problems with construction or fit. It was actually done very well for the times. Now, if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf. Well, we hope you like this premium step-by-step model kit review. And so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking on the icon in the lower right hand of any of the reviews. Or you can find us on Facebook or our website, RyderReplicas.com. Thanks.